to Ralph's question, where he says that in this portion of Scripture, in this Parsha, we have the most meetings between humans and the divine anywhere, at least in the Torah. But I think you're right. Like, aside from especially with Yeshua, but like, hey, this is like what is the significance here? Do we have any thoughts on that?
Well, it just popped in my head, so it's just a thought that, an establishment of a people is happening here. God is establishing who he is with them. He's establishing that he can be trusted. He's establishing this foundation for the patriarchs. So, I don't know, I just think he's showing up a lot to establish this bond with them and like, here I am. I'm trustworthy. This is who I am. All the names that we see of God are featured here too. All the different names of him and what they mean. So, I don't know, I think he's just establishing that connection and that history now, because as you progress through the Bible and then you have people getting farther and farther away from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you don't have that as much. It's like they have to look back and they have to keep looking back. And so God is just, this is what I think, he's just establishing who he is, and this is who you can count on. This is, all these names, that is who I am. And we look back on that. We, thousands of years later, we look back on all these names and how he's taken care of his people. So it's testimony for us as well as it was for them. That's all. That's my thought.
Okay. All right. Back to Ralph. Hadassah, you're getting your steps in today.
Actually, that's very close to the commentary that I read, explaining it by saying that in God's mind, if I could use that phrase, the Torah really lays out everything he has to say for us as humans. So as more and more is being said, there's less and less of a reason for him to intervene and make his presence.
Yeah. I would like to submit one thought as well. So I agree with that. I think also, I really do wonder if Jacob was struggling with faith in some way, and here we have God appearing several times, and one of the commentaries I was reading touched on something in this direction, but without saying what I'm going to say here. So, but it brought out the idea, the thought that the name Israel or Yisrael means one who struggles with God or prevails with God and this sort of thing, and they were accentuating the fact that God is okay with us wrestling with him, right? That he named Jacob, he renames him Israel, and this is the name, Israel's not known as the Abrahamites, right? Or, I don't know I could do it with Isaac, but yeah, Isaacites, however you want to say that. But Israelites. And part of me wonders if one of the things that God is communicating here is that he can show up to us as much and as many times as we could imagine, and we still are going to feel the need to wrestle with him. In terms of faith, we either, there are a lot of points in this parsha that raise the idea of free will, right? Because God could have just reprogrammed either Jacob or Esau, or even prior to this, Laban, and he could have just made things happen a certain way, but he didn't. He is allowing free will and free choice and all of this, and at the end of the day, there's going to be things that go wrong for us. There's going to be suffering. There's going to be war. There's going to be famine. We're going to lose our job. We're going to, be sick and perhaps even die. And a question that is often asked is, why God? Right? If there is a God and if He's good, then why all of these things? And one of the answers for that comes down to free will. And when I think that part of the juxtaposition, if you will, of what I see as Jacob struggling a little bit to continue to trust, and God's continually showing up, is to demonstrate that, or perhaps to demonstrate that even when God is constantly showing, we're still going to wrestle with Him, and God is okay with that, and that even with God showing up, it still takes faith. We still have to believe in God and in His goodness, in His forbearance, in His foresight, and all of these things, even when it's difficult. I think that I hope that makes sense. Okay. I've got, Jonathan over here, and then Claude. So all the way on the other side, Hadassah. Jonathan, raise your hand high. There we go.
So like you said before, they're not the Abramites, they're not the Isaacites, they're the Israelites. And when they say the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you notice that Jacob is at the bottom. And in the New Testament, when Jesus is talking to his disciples and they ask him, who's the greatest of us? And he says, he who puts him last shall be first. Jacob is at the bottom, but he is the one that God named the Israelites after. And that's him being humbled.
Well, continuing with the New Testament example, Peter, going out on the boat, and then he was walking on water for a bit until the waves and stuff put fear in his heart. And so he started thinking, what did Jesus do? Did he sure do? He reached down and picked him up. So even in the New Testament, you have various times where our faith is tested. And that's the rest of our lives would be like that, our faith being tested. And I was thinking of the word wrestle. Why wrestle? Because it is a wrestling match. The rest of our life can be a wrestling match between our faith, what we believe, and what's out there.
All right. Sharon.
If we got it right all the time, we wouldn't need God. And so Jacob is a very, very distinct example of getting it wrong multiple times and God interceding and putting him back on the right path.
Yeah. Well, I think, and he makes that a matter of his identity. And that's not who you are anymore. And so, it's interesting because he's not trying, when he comes, Esau's coming with 400 men. I think we'll talk about that maybe later. But so Esau's coming, and instead of trying to be cunning and get his way out of this, Yaakov meets him head on. He sends him these gifts, and as Matt said, he's prostrating himself very painfully. His whole entire family is following suit. All the language that he tells his servants to use is deferential and subservient to Esau. He's not trying to deceive anybody anymore. He's not trying to be someone or something that he's not. And really, he's kind of reversing what he did earlier, where he essentially, I'm generally one who would try to defend Jacob in his actions and say it was really Rebekah, and okay. But quite frankly, whatever his intention was and whatever his attitude behind what he did was, doesn't change what he did, right? His actions were a certain thing, and those had consequences and effect on his brother. And so he's trying to, I think, in some way, I think he is trying to appease his potential anger, but he's also showing deference, and he's giving him honor, and he's giving him gifts, and all these things that he has the power to do now. He's doing, and even when his brother refuses and said, "Oh no, I got 400 men with me. You think I need this?" His brother also graciously accepts, and so I think we see this shift in it's not just a name, but I think it is in Jacob's identity, and we see that he when he's wrestling with the angel or with God, he says, "Because you have striven with God and man and prevailed." Right? This is who you are, and we're just going to make it official. He's changed who he is so that he's no longer the deceiver, right? But now he's working, striving and prevailing. Okay, Daniel. And then I see other faces that have thoughts behind them.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we get the whole story, right? So we know what happens afterwards. And the very interesting thing, I do think it's there's this great moment for Jacob where he acts in, it's faith over fear for a second there. He goes with Jacob, but then he goes and meets with Esau rather. But then Esau says, "Well, hey, why don't you come with us and let's go." And then Jacob says basically, "Well, I've got the women and the children. They can't really make it. And you know how the animals are, and we're really going to have to make this little side quest." And that's very interesting because then out of that comes this whole entire horrible situation with Dinah and the Shechemites and this whole entire thing as well. So I do think that this reflects the very human situations that are all the very, very, gritty situations throughout the Bible of our actions do have these consequences. It's possible that if he had gone with Esau, he wouldn't have had that whole entire situation with, Dinah and the everything, all the fallout that, that came from that. I don't know. I think so many times we were looking for this ideal person and this ideal thing where it's, we can act without fear. We can act all the time, just purely in faith. And I feel like the stories throughout the Bible just show us that even when we do fail and mess up, there is always that redemption. And that's the thing that I see through this whole story. But yeah, I don't think that I think the really interesting thing is the imperfections of these founders in the Bible. And as much as it was a great moment for Jacob to overcome something, I still think that afterwards there was a pretty gnarly moment. And then this flow all the way into Egypt and everything that happened from after that point. But it's an interesting thing just to see what happened afterwards as well, the fallout from that.
Hannah.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking on a lot of different comments. I just kind of see it as, and it's probably been said before, really the story of us as believers. God blesses us and promises things to us as we come to Him, and we blow it a lot. We don't always have the right attitudes and things, and He still is there for us, right? And then He brings hardship. And I feel like when his thigh was touched at the end there, it's like, okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. I think about it because I work for the persecuted church, so I just think about them in relation to this. And it's like, they wrestle and he wrestles. And then God takes everything away, even his thigh, so he can't even walk. And God does that sometimes in our lives. He does that in the believer's life. He allows it, I should say. And yet, it was at that, like you said, he crossed the river. And it's like he had to lay everything down there to cross that river. It was the moment where he gave up and said, okay, not my will, but yours be done. If I go over that river and I die, I die. And that's where he brings us, all of us, eventually. It's just, yeah. So.
All right, Ralph. Hadassah, right behind you again.
Just quickly, if you're looking for, in my mind, a modern-day application of this story, it's the trust but verify of Ronald Reagan. We trust in God, but let's verify that the Russians are really doing away with their nuclear weapons.
Right. Yes.
I was thinking about the name Jacob, and it says, wrestle with God and man, and God won. I'm kind of thinking that Jacob's name meant man's ways, because he was a deceiver.
What? I'm sorry, I can't understand.
I
what
was
you're saying.
thinking that Jacob's name
Yeah.
meant the way men do things. They deceive, they trick, manipulate, right? And now he's wrestled with God, and now he's changed because he's no longer that way. Kind of like being born again, sort of, in a way.
Okay.
So Jacob says that you go on ahead and I'll meet you at Seir, right? Well, what are we to make of Jacob not actually meeting Esau at Seir? And the next time he reunites with his brother is when they bury their father.
Do I just answer straight or do I ask another question? So I think perhaps he was happy with the reconciliation and thought, if we're together too long, who knows what's going to happen? Plus, the other, that's one thought, right? Because I don't know. Like we see that they at some point it says that they had to part ways because the land couldn't support both of them, so I think, yeah. Unless you're trying to intimate that he's deceiving again, I don't know what the. I'm not sure. I don't trust this reconciliation. And okay, all right, Hannah.
There's a note here in my Bible that says Jewish sources interpret Esau's kiss and his response as not genuine. In the Tanakh, there's a sign, there's 6 dots above the Hebrew word for kissed to tip the reader off that something different was happening, that he didn't kiss him wholeheartedly, that he still hated Yaakov but had a temporary change of heart when he saw him. And maybe Jacob was just onto that. He's like, I'm not going to stick around.
So, yeah, so you don't have to look very far or hard to find that thought and opinion. Up until this time going through the Parsha, I've always viewed Esau as like, he's the bad guy of like the story, like throughout and forever. And I was reading another commentary that was showing basically trying to vindicate Esau in some way. And one of the things that this commentator pointed out was, do I have it here? Oh, I do. Okay, I'm gonna read this. This is from the Rational Bible. It says, the age-old maxim of time heals all wounds seems to have been in operation here. Both Esau and Jacob were overcome with sincere affection and emotional catharsis. Esau was not a bad man, and the Torah never portrays him as such. It is true Esau did not care about spiritual matters, but he was a gruff man of the earth. But and he was a gruff man of the earth, but the Torah never depicts him as mean-spirited. Moreover, he was a devoted son, which in my book, and more importantly this book, the Bible, counts for a lot. Honoring one's parents is one of the 10 Commandments. In addition to reacting to this emotional moment, reuniting with his only sibling after 20 years, Jacob's tears must have been at least partially out of profound relief that his brother's greeting was one of familial love, not hostility or worse, violence. In keeping with that, like one of the things that the rabbis say is that when Esau went to kiss him, he actually was going to bite his neck, but Jacob's neck turned to marble and broke his teeth, and therefore he kissed him. So there's some fanciful like interpretations, right? But the part one of the thoughts is that maybe it was genuine on Esau's part, and maybe he was just maybe he was hot-headed and living in the moment. I don't know, right? Because he's we see that he comes in. His character is not one that we see in Scripture of forethought, right? He comes in. It says that he was out in the field and he was starving. He comes in. He's like, "Give me some of that red stuff." And he's like, "Sell me your birthright for it." He's like, "What? I'm gonna die. What good is a birthright to me?" And then the Torah is very primitive in its language, right? Like he sat, he ate, he left, and this is what we see of him. And so if I ever see him again, I'm going to kill him. Like, does he really mean that? I don't know, right? Because did he mean to give up his birthright? I don't know, but it seems like he wasn't thinking far ahead. He wasn't. So it could be that he really was like, my brother. I haven't seen him in so long. I don't know, maybe. All right. On the other side over here, okay. We'll come over here first, and then we'll come back. I know it's not short that way. We're just kind of going in order.
Well, Esau was blessed as well. He became, kings came from him, and later when the Israelites are traveling, God is like, "Don't touch Seir. I promised them that land. Don't do anything to them. Just leave them alone." So, and if Esau had really been like a bad guy, I don't think he would have been blessed in that regard. I think Jacob was just very peaceful, and we see later in how he deals with the whole Dinah situation, how he's a bit of a pacifist, and he does not look good in the next bit of the Parsha, in my opinion. He lets his sons just do. He should have been the one to get judgment for Dinah, not his sons. And I have a feeling that because she was Leah's daughter, not Rachel's, that he was a little bit didn't care for her as much as maybe if she had been Rachel's. But anyway, Esau was not the kind of person to hold back and be sneaky. So if he had wanted to kill Jacob in that moment, he had the guys. Jacob prostrated himself 7 times on that hip. Like, Esau had to have seen that. He had to have seen his weakness. He had all his wives and stuff like right there. Like he could have done whatever he wanted if he really wanted to. There was no risk involved. So it was likely genuine. I don't think Esau, like you said, had the forethought to be sneaky like Jacob was. He just wasn't that guy. He was stupid enough to sell his birthright for soup. So, to be completely honest.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And then Lisa over here. And as you're going over, clear on the other side. So as you're going, I'll say that also I think that Esau, it could have been that Esau needed those guys for protection, and that when he offers that to Jacob, that was genuinely out of care and concern, and like, hey, this is a rough place, bro. Like, are you sure you're going to be okay? Like, let my guys, protect you. And so, anyway.
Well, I just was thinking, like, okay, so where was Jacob supposed to be heading anyway? And because later it says that God said to go to Bethel, and that was where he was supposed to settle. So, we're kind of conjecture here on what everybody was thinking and why they separated. But, it doesn't look like God was going to have Jacob stay there anyway. And so, we don't know. Did God prompt him to, no, don't go there because I do have you on another path. I'm not having you stay right there. So, there still was God's plan and the whole thing as to where Jacob was supposed to go.
Right.
And it was not going to be staying there. So, I don't know.
All right. We don't have, man, we have we are not making it very far. All right. Is your hand up? Yes. Okay. All the way to the sound booth.
Am I understanding correctly, you said that you don't know where Jacob was going before he encountered Esau?
No, I'm saying that everybody, Esau says, hey, come here with me. And then he doesn't go that way. He's like, yeah, okay, but he goes the other direction. So
Yes.
the direction was Bethel eventually, that's where he was going.
Right, yeah. Genesis 31 is him saying that's where he was going. Before he left Laban, he said, that's where we're going. We're going to Bethel. So there was a clear direction. God just made abundantly clear the second time, hey, don't go to Seir, go back to where you already were intending to go. Probably for your own personal safety.
So I just want to bring out, so it says that so in verse 18, Genesis 33:18. This is right after Esau. We haven't even read that. We're talking beyond where we've read a good amount. But here we are, and Esau says, "Let me leave with you some of my people who are with me." In verse 15, he said, "What need is there?" And Esau returned to Succoth and built himself a house and made essentially to the city of Shechem, and which is in the land of Canaan, on his way from Padan Aram, and he camped before the city. And one of the ways that this verse 18, where it says it came safely in shalom to the city, is that the rabbis say that God to the city, he wasn't limping anymore. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out. The other thing is that we see in this parsha is God. I think that it's obviously especially clear for that perhaps it's also extends out to the rest of us that God actually cares where we are geographically, right? He cares where we are physically, not just our heart attitude towards him, but that I think that sometimes he has places for us to be and to go and things to do and these sorts of things. And we may not know the whole thing at once, but that it's one reason why it's always wise to be seeking the direction of the Lord, so that we know, where do you want me in this time, and if he hadn't, maybe if he hadn't stopped so long in Shechem, I don't know, maybe this whole thing with his daughter wouldn't have happened, and I don't know. Okay, I'm not judging, I'm just observing. Okay, so so we've only got a few minutes here. Do we have any other thoughts? Gosh, we have not gotten into Dinah and her brothers and this Hamor, and oh my gosh, these guys were just pieces of work. And we see people behaving badly. All right, Byron, right up here.
I just wanted to point out that the enmity seems to keep going. That this is if it's a reconciliation, it's a short one.
Okay.
Because the prophets keep referring to Edom as being a real problem for Israel. And they refer to it as the age-old or the ancient enmity.
Yeah, there's definitely, yes.
It's just interesting at the very end, just fast forwarding a little bit. Esau and Jacob come together to bury Isaac, just like Isaac and Ishmael came together to bury Abraham. And also Isaac lived long enough to see those two brothers come together, and also to see Jacob come back to the land of promise. So that was just cool. Even though Jacob was kind of a terrible father in the last. That really bothered me. He was terrible. Oh my gosh. He just stood there. Like, if you read the ending there, well, this is all explained to him, and the brothers have to respond. Like, Jacob is just like chilling.
Yeah.
Like, my dude, what are you doing? What are you, like, he's just standing, and there's no response from him other than to get mad that his sons had done something about it. And I think I know it was technically wrong, but also hilarious. I'm sorry, it was brilliant.
Very shrewd.
It was.
So I think there, and I think that honestly, we could probably talk on chapter 34 as long as we've talked until now. And I think there are a lot of things going on. Not to say that I think the way that Jacob handled everything was correct or right. I'm not saying that. I'm also not saying that that's how Simeon and Levi handled things was great either. Anyway, there's a lot going on. But yes, point taken.
Going back to what I said earlier about Jacob being at the bottom, being at the top also, we see a lot of examples of this when he's talking with Esau. He says in verse 8, no, wait, hold up. 13, my Lord. He says, my Lord, and when he's telling his servants to go out in front of him, my lordship and my king, I think it is. No, not king. I know.
I think it's just Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's him showing, that's him being humble. And that is why God chose him to be the Israelites' name.
All right. Any other thoughts? I think we're winding down here. All right. So, so I think that there are, there's a lot going on in this parsha, and I think that there are a few things that we can take away from this, and I think some of it has to do with faith. With when Jacob is brought before Pharaoh, and Pharaoh says, "I've never met anybody as old as you. Oh my gosh, can you tell me about life?" And his response is very short, but he says, "Few and evil have been the days of your servant, and they haven't attained to the days of my forefathers." And yet, Jacob is it's from him that the 12 tribes come. And when we think of someone when I think of somebody with great faith, obviously I think the first primary is Abraham, but to me, Jacob also is a man of immense faith, and the fact that he struggles with that, and the fact that he says, well, I have to. With Laban, for example, like things were, the deck was stacked against me. And when I figured out how to play the game, you reshuffled the deck and stacked it against me again. And you just kept doing this. And yet God prospered him. I think that this shows that even though that life isn't easy, that's not what our faith rests on, life being easy. Our faith doesn't rest on being, hey, I'm materially advancing. But it's really, no, we trust in the name of the Lord our God, even when, and especially when things are not going our way, and we maintain that faith when it looks like things have just gotten worse. Right? This is what we see with going back to the point that Austin made, like, hey, I'm going to my brother, he may want to kill me, and now I can't even run. And I think that maintaining faith in the face of adversity is the most important time to maintain that faith. And again, Jacob did not wait for God just to act sovereignly, right? Most of the time, as not how God acts. Like, he acts upon us. He'll want us to do something, but he leaves it up to us to do it. And for sure, God works through miracles. I've seen them. I've experienced them. I've received them. But God, I think, also expects us. There's a point of maturity of like, hey, we're stepping towards you, God. It looks like this is what you're doing, and I'm embracing this, and I'm stepping towards it, even if there's a great cost and a risk involved. Anyway, we could go on, but I think that's going to be good for now. Continue the conversation in Oneg. We still have, I think, 3 chapters that we haven't touched. So, all right, let's go ahead and stand.